Hey, Westin. Okay, so I have your notes pulled up here. I think you're on point with some of your observations, and there's some that I don't think it matters too much. So I'm just going to go down the list here. You mentioned that you might be tossing a little bit low. I don't think any of these. I think you'd toss too low. We'll just go after a couple spots here. So if I just draw some points on here, this is contact position right at that circle there. If I just scroll backwards a little, there's too low would be like right at that point or even lower. But the toss always goes pretty well above that point. It's not even on camera for this frame. So I don't think your toss is ever too low. If anything, if you're having troubles with the toss, I would say you're tossing a little bit higher than you need to. The higher you toss, the faster the ball just comes back down. So it makes it harder to time. So if you're struggling with the actual toss or the location of the toss when you hit it, then I would recommend bringing the toss back down. But if it's not really a problem for you, I wouldn't worry about the toss too much. I'm not seeing a whole lot of variability in your tosses, but if that's something that is causing you issues, I would work on bringing that toss a little bit lower, if anything. But I don't see it as being a problem. Definitely not too low. You mentioned the racket kind of wrapping around your head. I think this right here is kind of what you're talking about. Um, the racket really isn't the focus here. What what we're missing? Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. What we're missing is more so a real racket drop position. So if I just trace a line at the lowest point that your racket gets to is about right here. You'll see often in professional players they get around to hip or kind of like buttocks level height. And the reason that you're not getting much of a racket drop, let's just zoom in a little bit, is that the your arm is kind of moving upwards without the rest of your body. Ideally, we would like a straight line from this left shoulder to your right elbow. And then from here, your forearm will hinge back. And if that forearm hinges back correctly, that'll allow the racket to drop this way instead of here from your hand. The wrapping around the head's not really a problem. That's kind of stylistic. But the issue here is that we have a break in the power from the rest of the body when the arm moves upwards first without the rest of the body. I'll show you an example on a pro here later. And then the last little bit, you mentioned the right pectoral. So what I think you're saying here is that after you toss, there isn't much of a rotation backwards. So right now you're facing probably a little bit into the court. I wouldn't say you're fully sideways, maybe facing here from your body. And that just doesn't allow you to wind up more energy. So you're right. You will generate more power with more of a stretch in your body. I want you to think of your body kind of as a rubber band. The more you can stretch backwards, the more you can unload into the serve. Let me go ahead and pull up a pro example and I'll show you side by side. Okay, so let's just go kind of prep phase by prep phase. So on the left is a pro example. As he's turning back, you'll see here from directly behind him, we're not directly behind you, but we can see, like you said, you can see the front part of his chest. And this is just the more you can stretch comfortably back this way, the more load you're going to have or stretch in your body left to unload. So if you could do a little bit more turning just with the body back this way, it'll just give you more of a load phase into the rest of the serve. Yeah, I'd say you could do a little bit more. If you used to, that's totally fine. Just as far back as you can comfortably stretch. Don't over twist or anything like that. That's not necessary, but a little bit more than straight back from parallel with with the side of the court would be good. All right, and then as we move forward, this is the stretch I was talking about. So you see there's a straight line from shoulder to elbow on this, and then from there, the racket points down this way. And this is how we achieve a really deep racket drop position. And that's what's missing here on yours is that the arm comes up while the rest of your body's coming up. And then we just don't allow enough of kind of a runway for all that energy to go up into the serve. If you can just keep the arm, um, if you can keep the arm level with the rest of your body, and then the racket drop going this way, it's just going to give you more of a stretch and more of a runway to accelerate up into the serve. That is probably the most um, impactful change you can make in terms of power output from the body. Is a nice big stretch in the shoulder so that you can release all the energy forward. So that, along with the turn in the body backwards, I think will be the two big drivers for a ton of power. Um, there's more that can be done with pronation, but I want you to work on these two things first. We can do more after that. And then the last little bit is you mentioned platform versus pinpoint. What you'll see in the pros example is that there's a fairly even distribution of energy from both legs. He comes up into pinpoint. You don't have to pinpoint or platform. Both are fine. You just choose whichever's the most comfortable for you. Roger Federer served with a platform all of his career, and he's got one of the best serves, most aces on tour type things. So pinpoint is a little bit stronger, but platform is plenty fine. There's no issue with it. But you'll see for him, both legs drive up off the court, and everything straightens upwards very deliberately to get all the way up to the ball. This is how you incorporate the legs into power. So for you, you do get height off the ground. It's We're not going for as a big of jump as you possibly can. You mentioned that, I think, in your notes, that you used to jump a little bit higher. We don't need to jump higher. Even like in the pro example here, he's maybe 6 inches, 8 inches maybe off the floor. We don't need to jump really that high. Um, your front foot, your left foot probably is plenty high, but what's happening is your right foot leaves the floor way early, doesn't really push off, you just kind of lift by the hips. You see that? How the right leg comes off the floor, but it's not really adding anything. You're not pushing off the floor. And the left leg just kind of launches a little bit just from the momentum coming up. I want you to work on timing both legs kicking off the floor at the same time. Platform or pinpoint doesn't matter, but if both of those can launch up, that's how you straighten all the energy up into the air. Okay, so right now it's just kind of your right leg's already being a counterbalance as you lean forward, and the counterbalance does work. In most pro examples, the right leg does kick out, but it's well after they've struck the ball. When they hit the ball, everything's still nice and straight, and then as they're landing, the right leg kicks out for balance. So for yours, it's just a little backwards. The right leg comes up first, and then you hit the ball, and then it's still there to counterbalance. So let's start off with those. There's more that can be done with the overall throwing motion, quote unquote, of the serve. But let's start with that. Number one is I'd like a little bit more rotation with with the chest backwards, so that from directly behind we can see your chest. Number two is I'd like you to try to relax the arm a little bit so that the arm doesn't lead up really early, and you have a nice stretch with the shoulder backwards. This all comes from having a really loose arm and really loose shoulder without tensioning everything early on. And then part three is with the legs. Let's try to, whatever stance is most comfortable for you, work on both legs kind of pushing up off the floor together. When you look at the real biomechanics of it, I think that to have as strong of a serve as possible with the legs, um, Dr. Mark Kovacs, he does kind of biomechanics for pro athletes. You should actually be using the right leg slightly more than the left leg, and we're here mostly, I'd say like 95% left leg in this one. So for now, work on timing it so both legs kick up off the floor at the same time, and then straightening everything up towards contact on the ball. Okay. Let me know what you think. And then, yeah, we'll chat more. Hopefully we get on court here soon too. But yeah, any feedback, just let me know, okay?